Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from our UPSC Civil Services examination perspective. Today, let's take up some of the important news which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 24th February 2022. The news to be taken up has been displayed on the screen and timestamping for these has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from our prelims and mains point of view. Now today's weekly mains practice question from DNS dated 4th August 2021 is, do you think the poverty line in India is able to capture real poverty scenario? Give arguments in support of your answer. Now this question needs to be addressed within 250 words and carries 15 marks. Now before attempting this particular question, you can go through the DNS discussed by Baswa sir dated 4th August 2021 where he discussed about the basics about poverty line estimation. And after going through this discussion, you will be able to attempt this particular answer as your mains practice question. Do attempt this question and submit your answer in the eLearn platform. Now, the first news to be taken up appears in the section of text and context. It says, understanding the draft India data accessibility and use policy of 2022, which has been released as a draft by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Now this draft provides for sharing of public data with the government along with the private entities. And this aspect of sharing of public data or making public data accessible for government and private entities was also provided in the Economic Survey of 2019. In one of its chapters, it highlighted about the idea of commercializing public data. So based on the idea proposed in the Economic Survey of 2019, the ministry has released this particular policy of commercial exploitation of public data. So in this backdrop, we need to know about the need for this particular draft policy. What are the objectives and purpose for which this draft policy has been shared with the public? What are the various benefits for citizens, government and also private entities, and also various concerns? Now, one of the concerns highlighted in the Economic Survey of 2019 was absence of a body which could regulate its sharing of data. So in this backdrop, this particular policy provides for India Data Office and also a India Data Council. So the whole idea is that since India has been generating quantums of data, hence these data should be commercialized and also harnessed for better governance, better public service delivery, and also should be used for innovation purposes and various research purposes. And based on this, the ministry has shared this draft data. So as a part of the gist, newspaper mentions that the policy objectives of this draft are mainly commercial in nature. It further says that as the generation of citizen data is slated to increase exponentially in the next decade, the government is looking to license and sell public data to private sector. So there is an aspect of commercialization along with licensing of public data. So the question arises that what kind of data can the government share with the private entities? So regarding the kind of data which can be shared or used, this says that policy will be applicable to all data and information created and collected by the central government. It would also allow state governments to adopt its provisions. So there is also a provision for state government to use these data. And sharing of these data will be done by establishing India Data Office and also a India Data Council as a consultative body. However, this newspaper also highlights certain privacy concerns with respect to this data policy. So it says that there are privacy issues which needs to be addressed. Apart from that, with the adoption of language of open data, the government strays from its core principle of providing transparency towards its citizens. And other issues include how the center and state are going to share proceeds from the sales of such data of citizens. So based on this backdrop, let us understand the need for such a policy, objectives and purpose of this policy, benefits and also certain concerns with respect to this policy. And all of these aspects or some of it may be asked as a part of your mains question. So from your mains perspective, you need to know about the need for such a policy, its objectives, benefits and also concerns, as question can be asked regarding examining this draft India Data Accessibility and Use Policy released by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Now from our syllabus perspective, this topic gets covered under GS paper 2 with respect to governance and also under GS paper 3 regarding the aspect of security. So coming to the need for such a policy, we can understand that India is accelerating towards an increased population which is using internet and various mobile applications. And the active users of citizens using internet in India is expected to increase by 45%. So based on this understanding, the government intends to commercialize the exploitation of these data which is generated through use of internet by citizens. So citizens being online and using internet will increase to 900 million by the year 2025 from 622 million in 2020. So the government intends to harness this particular data which is generated by increasing online users. Further, the government also believes that there would be 3 times increase in consumption of data, especially after 5G comes into effect. Further, India's IT and telecom infrastructure provides a robust backbone where citizens are increasingly relying on digital services for citizen state services. And the emerging technologies in India is expected to generate $1 trillion worth economy. And this will also spearhead India's digital economy to $5 trillion, which will be driven by data. And all these will provide various employment opportunities and also growth in this particular sector. Further, this 5 trillion digital economy, which will be driven through the data technology, will contribute 20% to India's GDP. And this increase in volume of data will provide immense opportunities both for the government and citizens in terms of better service delivery, better governance opportunities, innovation in critical sectors, and also it will help in improved policy making and program evaluation. So the government of India believes that India's ambition to become $5 trillion digital economy, which will contribute 20% to India's GDP, will depend on India's ability to harness data, which will be generated by increased use of people using internet in the country. So in the backdrop of these understandings, this particular policy which has been proposed by the ministry aims to enhance access, quality and also use of data. And this is in line with the current and emerging technology needs of the decade. So because of all these reasons, the government has introduced this data policy. Now after understanding the needs, let's go through the objectives and purpose of this particular policy. So it states that the policy aims to radically transform India's ability to harness public sector data to catalyze large-scale social transformation. So it talks about social transformation by harnessing public sector data. And it also mentions that any kind of data sharing shall take place within the legal framework. And regarding sharing of data, that is government to government data sharing, it highlights that all government ministries or departments shall identify all existing data assets and create detailed searchable data inventories with clear metadata and data dictionary. So it provides for creating a detailed and searchable data inventories having a metadata and data dictionaries. And then this data inventory will be used as a database for government to government data sharing. So this data inventory will be shared with all the ministries and departments, and this will become a searchable database for government to government sharing. And this will minimize the duplication of data processing and will eventually improve delivery of citizen-centric services. Now it further says that all data portals and dashboard which will be maintained by various ministries and departments shall be integrated through the application program interface with Open Government Data Portal. So this is the mechanism of data sharing with various ministries and departments. Now the policy provides for 2 types of data sets, an open data set and a negative list. So an open data set is a kind of a data set which is free to use by anyone. It can be reused and also redistributed. It says that it should be machine readable and easily accessible also. And the policy also provides for an open government data portal which will be developed by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Now it says that the platform will be a single point of access to data sets in open machine readable format published by various ministries and departments under the National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy of 2012. Now regarding negative list, it provides for certain kinds of data which cannot be shared with various ministries or departments. Now these data will be confidential in nature, or such data which are in the interest of country's security. And such data which has been provided under the negative list will also be not open to public for sharing purposes. So coming back to the objectives and purposes, it highlights that the main idea is to maximize access to and use of quality public sector data, improve policy making, evaluation and monitoring of such data, enhancing efficiency of service delivery for citizens, facilitating creation of public digital platforms, protecting the privacy and security of all citizens. However, this aspect can be debated as so far the Personal Data Protection Bill has not become a law. Another purpose is to streamline intergovernment data sharing, promoting transparency, accountability and ownership in data sharing and release of data, building digital and data capacity, knowledge and competency of government officials, making the data interoperable between ministries and departments, and thereby integration of data will lead to enhancing the quality and usability of this data. Another objective of this policy is greater citizen awareness about use of data, greater citizen participation and also greater citizen engagement with open data. And regarding the open data aspect, the policy states that all data for government, ministry and department or organization shall be open and shareable unless they have been categorized under the negative list of data sets which will not be shared. Another objective is to ensure secure pathways to share detailed data sets for research and development. So, sharing of data for research and development for various sectors of the economy. Increase the availability of high value data sets of national importance. However, this aspect of high value data sets has not been defined clearly and can also be said to be one of the concerns with respect to this particular policy. So regarding this high value data sets, the policy states that it will be notified by the India Data Council, and these high value data sets will be defined based on their degree of importance in the market, degree of socio-economic benefits, impact on India's artificial intelligence strategy and performance on key global indices. Now these are very wide parameters for any data to be categorized as high value data sets, and hence can also be said to be one of the concerns with respect to this particular policy. And lastly, the purpose states to improve overall compliance to data sharing policies and standards. So other than protecting the privacy and security of all the citizens, all other aspects can also be said to be the benefits of this particular policy as well. Now, after understanding the needs and purposes, let's go through some of the concerns which has been expressed in this article. So the first concern is regarding the privacy issues and especially sharing of private data of individuals for commercial purposes. Now, this aspect needs to be regulated through a law. And in this regard, the Personal Data Protection Bill must also consider these aspects of commercialization of personal data as well. Now talking about privacy issues, let's also discuss about the K.S. Puttaswamy judgment, which categorized that privacy is a core part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which protects life and personal liberty. Now this judgment also highlighted that state can intervene into the privacy issues of an individual if it fulfills the aspects of legality, need and proportionality. So it has to be seen whether this policy fulfills these three criteria which has been provided under the K.S. Puttaswamy judgment on right to privacy. Now the second concern highlighted is that citizens are treated as subjects as their data is shared with the government and also private entities without their consent. Now this aspect must be looked into as to what kind of data will be shared with various government agencies and also what kind of data will be commercialized or licensed to private players. The third aspect is regarding lack of proper definition of certain key terms such as high value data sets. Now we have already seen that this term has not been defined clearly, and the India Data Council has been tasked to categorize such high value data sets. And also the need and purpose of these high value data sets needs to be categorized properly. The next concern highlighted is regarding lack of transparency in consultation and drafting with respect to this particular policy. Now another concern is regarding the aspect of data anonymization. So there is a lack of legal accountability and also regulatory oversight regarding data anonymity. Now data anonymization refers to protecting private data or secret data through encryption process. Now the next concern highlighted in this article is that this policy creates various institutions such as India Data Office, India Data Council, etc. However, these institutions must be created through a legislation. And lastly, there is need for better clarity with respect to sharing of data with states and also sharing of financial proceeds between center and states in case data is licensed. So these are some of the concerns which has been highlighted in this particular article regarding data accessibility policy. So in this article, we have discussed about the need, purpose, benefits, and also concerns with respect to the Draft India Data Accessibility and Use Policy of 2022. With this, let's take up the next article for discussion. The next news to be taken up also appears in the text and context section on the same page, that is page number 1. Now it says NASA's plan to decommission the International Space Station, which was commissioned in the year 1998, and for the first time astronauts went to International Space Station in the year 2000. So it says that why is NASA planning to deorbit the International Space Station? How will the space station be deassembled? Now in its gist, it says that NASA plans to decommission the International Space Station by 2031. So still there is a lot of time for ISS to be decommissioned. ISS was launched in 1998 as a part of joint efforts by United States, Russia, Japan, Canada, and Europe. Now this topic becomes important from your prelims perspective, and questions regarding International Space Station and its joint effort by these countries can be asked in your prelims question. It further says that it operates in the low Earth orbit. Now this again becomes an important factual point with respect to International Space Station, and it operates roughly at an altitude of over 400 km from the Earth's surface. Now the next aspect highlighted is that the limitations on life cycle of the station are catching up. Now the International Space Station was supposed to work or was commissioned for 15 years but has been working for the last 21 years. So the International Space Station needs continuous upgradation because of wear and tear. So it says that the International Space Station goes through 16 rotations of the Earth per day, and this causes extreme temperature changes on the exterior side of the International Space Station. Now not only this, the side which faces the sun gets heated up at around 120 degrees Celsius, whereas the side which is not facing the sun gets cooled down to roughly around minus 150 degrees Celsius, and this causes extreme expansion and contraction on both sides of the International Space Station. So this has also impacted the functioning of International Space Station for the last few years. So it says the ISS goes through 16 rotations of the Earth per day, causing extreme temperature changes on the exterior. So this continuous rotation of International Space Station around the Earth has been referred as orbital thermal cycling, coupled with dynamic loading. Now here dynamic loading refers to docking and undocking of the spacecraft which carries the astronauts to the International Space Stations, and all these affects the longevity of the primary structure of the space station. So because of all these reasons, NASA is planning to decommission International Space Station. Now there is another important aspect from your prelims perspective which says that NASA plans to remove the station from its orbit around the Earth and eventually plunge it into the ocean, leading to Point Nemo. Now you need to know about Point Nemo. Now Nemo in Latin means no one, and this Point Nemo is over the South Pacific Oceanic uninhabited area. So from a prelims perspective, what we need to know is that International Space Station was launched in 1998 and it was a joint effort of Russia, United States, Japan, Canada and Europe. It operates in the low Earth orbit above 400 kilometers. And the low Earth orbit ranges between 150 to 1000 kilometers. It's basically below 1000 kilometers. Now there are a number of research which has been carried on or conducted in the laboratories of International Space Station, and it also houses the astronauts and various scientists who conduct various kind of scientific experiments and research and also technology demonstration. Now these astronauts who goes into International Space Station, they feel microgravity, that is a condition in which people or objects feel weightless and accordingly they float in the International Space Station. Now originally the ISS was commissioned for 15 years, but it has been 21 years since it has been functioning. So by 2031, NASA aims to replace the International Space Station with other commercial space stations. And here even China is planning its own space station. So the question which comes into mind is that why is NASA planning to decommission the International Space Station? Now the first point is that it has already exceeded its earlier period, which was of 15 years. And this has also impacted the technical lifetime of various components of the space station, including the primary structure of International Space Station. So it says that technical lifetime of ISS is limited and cannot be upgraded all the time. Further, lifetime of primary structure is affected by docking and undocking of spacecraft which carries the astronauts, which is referred as dynamic loading, and also orbital thermal cycling. Now this aspect we have already discussed, that the space station goes through 16 rotations of the Earth per day. Now this leads to heating of the exterior of the station, and because of this it leads to unusual expansion of such material. Further, the side facing the sun gets warmed up as high as 121 degrees Celsius, and the side not facing the sun gets cooled down as low as minus 157 degrees Celsius. So this unusual expansion and contraction of two sides further impacts the functioning of International Space Station. Now regarding the future plans for International Space Station, NASA plans to decommission it by 2031, and it will be done by removing the space station from its orbit and plunging the space station into the South Pacific Oceanic uninhabited area, that is Point Nemo. Now if you look into this picture, this is where is Point Nemo. Now this place of Point Nemo is 1000 kilometers away from any civilization, as you can see here. And Point Nemo is also referred as oceanic pole of inaccessibility because it is very far from any civilization. Now this newspaper also uses a term orbital decay with respect to removing ISS from its orbit. Now orbital decay means or is referred as gradual decrease of distance between two orbiting bodies. So in this case, the one orbiting body is the Earth and the other orbiting body is the International Space Station. So you must know this news mainly from your prelims perspective, and here you must know about Point Nemo, which is also referred as oceanic pole of inaccessibility, and certain basic facts with respect to the International Space Station. Now based on our discussion, this becomes your two practice questions. Question number 1 says, consider the following statements. International Space Station will be decommissioned by NASA by plunging it into the southern Atlantic Ocean over Point Nemo. Second, International Space Station was launched as a joint effort by United States and European Union only. And third, International Space Station has facilitated key breakthrough in science and technology such as fundamental disease research, drug development using protein crystals, methods to combat muscle atrophy and bone loss, etc. So the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? Options are A, 1 and 2 only, B, 2 only, C, 3 only, and D, 2 and 3 only. Now coming to the second practice question, it says, consider the following statements about Point Nemo. First, it is also referred as oceanic pole of inaccessibility and is situated approximately 1000 kilometers away from all civilizations in southern Pacific Ocean. Second, the point was calculated based on a computer program that calculated the coordinates that were at the greatest distance from three equidistant land coordinates. So here the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? Options are A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, and D, neither 1 nor 2. So based on our discussion so far, this becomes your 2 practice question with respect to this news which we have discussed from the text and context section. With this discussion, let's take up the next news analysis. The next news to be taken up also appears in the text and context section on page number 2. It says, the long wait for empowered mayors. Mayors in many global cities go on to lead their country. However, in India, it is the opposite story with politics to be blamed. Because in India, the mayors are not directly elected as is generally done in United States or other European countries. Now, the Constitution 74th Amendment provided for creation or constitution of urban local bodies. However, these urban local bodies are to be regulated as per the state government. And because of this, there have been irregular elections in various states. And in many states, it has been observed that mayors are seen by respective state governments in direct conflict with the chief minister or other ministers of the state. So the gist of this article highlights that the Economic Survey of 2017-18 noted that a third of India's population now lives in urban areas. However, there is an absence of a single city government in charge and low spending on infrastructure. It further says that metros have been deprived of an empowered mayors who can raise efficiency of a city, especially in terms of its infrastructure. Now, it further says that chief ministers see a potential threat from a charismatic and empowered mayor with a progressive policy. Now, some state governments have even used the excuse of poor performance of urban local body as a reason or justification to replace direct election of mayors with an indirect system or an indirect election. However, the main reason is that they do not like a person leading a city having a charismatic personality. So it is in this regard, this article highlights that there is an absence of a single city government, basically through the mayor, who can take care of India's increasing population in cities as they lack capacity, infrastructure, and also leadership at city level. Now, we have already seen that mayors are also seen in direct conflict with the chief minister or other prominent leaders of the state because they think that if a mayor is directly elected, then they can command or wield more power as compared to the other elected members of state legislative assembly. And because of this threat, many major municipal services which are to be provided under a municipal corporation are run by parastatal authorities which are answerable directly to the state government. Now, in this regard, an annual survey of India's city systems highlight that 33% of medium and large cities in India have directly elected mayors. However, none of the mega cities such as Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, or even Chennai has directly elected mayors. Next, only in 1/5 of big cities, the tenure of mayors is that of 5 years, whereas in most of the cities, the tenure of mayor has been at 2.5 years, whereas in other cities, it is even less than this. And proper devolution of function has not taken place as per Article 243W of the Indian Constitution. So let us understand about decentralization of power, delegation of power, and also devolution of power. Now, decentralization refers to constitutional transfer of power from center to lower levels, that is from center to state or from state to lower level, namely panchayats and municipalities. Now, then there is administrative decentralization. Now, administrative decentralization seeks to redistribute the aspects of authority, responsibility, and financial resources to provide public services among different levels of government. So in India, the Constitution's 73rd Amendment provided for decentralization of power at the level of panchayat, whereas Constitution's 74th Amendment provided for decentralization of constitutional power at the level of municipalities. Now, talking about devolution of power. Now, devolution of power is a type of administrative decentralization of power. So, when government authority devolve functions, they actually transfer the authority for decision making. So basically, authority is transferred to panchayat or municipality for taking any independent decision. There is transfer of authority with respect to financial decisions and also management of various aspects or various issues which have been provided to be dealt by panchayats and municipalities. And in this regard, 11th schedule and 12th schedule of the constitution was also added to provide for various activities under which panchayats and municipalities can make their respective law. Now, apart from devolution, we also have a concept of delegation of power. Now, delegation of power is a process of giving permission by a head of the department or a senior officer to his subordinate officer to take decisions on their behalf. So, delegation is very different from devolution. Because in devolution of power, there is actual administrative decentralization of authority, especially with respect to decision making, finance and management. But it is not such a case with respect to delegation, where actually the senior transfers the power to his subordinate to take decisions on their behalf. So according to the law of delegation of power, administrative agencies are authorized to delegate functions to subordinate officers. However, administrative agencies cannot delegate such powers and functions which they themselves are not authorized to perform. So after understanding these three important concepts, let's go through Article 243W and let us understand its relation with respect to the 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So it mentions about powers, authority and responsibilities of municipalities. It says that subject to the provisions of this constitution, the legislature of a state, that is a state government, may by law endow the municipality with such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as an institution of self-government. And such law may contain provision for devolution of powers and responsibilities upon the municipalities. However, this is subject to conditions as may be specified with respect to the law made by the state legislature. Now, this devolution of powers and responsibilities provided upon the municipalities is with respect to the preparation of plans for economic development and social justice and performance of functions and implementation of scheme as may be entrusted to the municipalities with respect to matters listed in 12th schedule. So basically, Article 243W provides for devolution of powers and responsibilities to municipalities regarding preparation of plans for economic development and social justice and also performance of such functions and implementation of schemes which have been entrusted to these municipal corporations for matters provided under the 12th schedule. So very clearly, Article 243W provides for devolution of powers and functions with respect to the 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution and does not provide for delegation of functions. Now, apart from directly elected mayors, there are other challenges and issues which are faced by urban local bodies in India. These include irregular elections, which defeats the whole idea and aim of decentralization of constitutional power guaranteed under Constitution 73rd and 74th Amendment. There is also lack of devolution of powers and responsibilities towards municipalities and panchayats under Article 243W and 243G of the Indian Constitution. So basically, the state governments have not devolved power at the lower level of panchayat and municipalities in India. Next, major work of urban local bodies are done by parastatals, that is such authorities who are directly accountable to the state government. So again, the whole idea of devolution of power, having independent authority for decision making, independent authority for financial decisions and management is defeated. The next concern is persistent scarcity of finances for municipalities and panchayats due to lack of power to collect taxes, and this overall leads to crippling administrative capacities as well. Issue of parallel governance, as there has been cases of multiplicity of authorities, as in a city there is a mayor and also a municipal commissioner, and also at various lower levels there are aspects of parallel governance. It further mentions about lack of coordination among various departments under central government and state governments and also local bodies, And this lack of coordination leads to haphazard and delayed execution of plans and projects. It further mentions about lack of infrastructure and specialized human resources. Now this becomes another issue which affects matters of urban governance. Obviously, corruption, which remains one of the most concerning issues adversely affecting the functions of local bodies, and unplanned urbanization impacting basic amenities like sanitation, waste management, and also issues in land use management, including that of drinking water in urban cities. Now, after going through the problems, let's go through the recommendations of Second Administrative Reform Commission and also the 15th Finance Commission. So the second ARC on improving urban governance has stated that urban local bodies must have a stake in state assembly, as it will ensure proper devolution of power. Further, they have also recommended that legislative councils can be recast as council for local bodies. Now, this will effectively expand the functionings of legislative council in various states. It further states that chairpersons or the members at all levels of panchayat should be elected directly. So this becomes one of the major recommendations of second ARC, and it further says that there should be clear delineation of functions for each level of urban local bodies. That is, the functions at each level of urban local bodies must be clearly demarcated without any overlapping of functions. Now, coming to the 15th Finance Commission recommendation, it has suggested for distribution of grants between rural and urban local bodies in the ratio of 67.5 to 32.5% to all tiers in the panchayat, village, block and district. Now, this distribution of finance will help to create durable community assets, improve overall functioning and provide employment opportunities at the lower level. Further, the Commission has also recommended to provide grants to all tiers of the Panchayati Raj institution as well, and also to provide grants, that is financial resource, to 5th and 6th schedule areas and cantonment boards. Further, the Commission has provided for special focus on districts having higher concentration of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population. Next, the Commission has stated that it aims to provide tied grants to rural local bodies. Now, tied grants are provided by Finance Commission to improve certain specific area or in a certain specific area. For example, improving sanitation, ensuring open defecation free status, supply of drinking water, etc. So the 15th Finance Commission has suggested to provide tied grants to rural local bodies. Further, the Commission has also suggested to provide tied grants to urban local body as well, above and over the central sponsored schemes for drinking water, for rainwater harvesting, and for the purpose of recycling and solid waste management. Further, the 15th Finance Commission has highlighted the complexity of problems faced by those cities having 50 million plus population. So in this regard, it has differentiated the need of larger cities by categorizing such cities as 50 million plus cities for which extra funds will be provided, and accordingly has provided additional funds to urban local bodies for issues critical for planned urbanization, to address the problem of sanitation, air quality, groundwater depletion, the problem of supply and management of water, and also to address efficient solid waste management efforts. So these are some of the important recommendations of 15th Finance Commission with respect to both urban local bodies and rural local bodies, especially in the form of grants. Now this topic becomes important as previously questions have been asked by UPSC on this aspect. Now look at this question asked in the year 2020. The question was, strength and sustenance of local institutions in India has shifted from their formative phase of functions, functionaries and funds to the contemporary stage of functionality. Highlight the critical challenges faced by local institutions in terms of their functionality in recent times. Thus, this topic becomes important not only from the perspective of election of mayor, but also in highlighting the problems faced by the urban local bodies and important recommendations of 2nd ARC and 15th Finance Commission, especially regarding the financial devolution of grants. So, this topic becomes important under GS paper 2, especially regarding devolution of powers and finances up to the local levels and also challenges therein. So, after understanding this topic, let's take up the next two articles for discussion. Now the next news to be taken up appears on page number 6 in the article section. Now it says the budget lacks the power to transform services. While clean energy is a priority, providing power has not been linked with policy making in the development sector. So effectively, this article is talking about the energy poverty in India. And based on this understanding, it highlights a World Bank report which states that there is a direct correlation between access to clean, safe and affordable energy with respect to human development. As access to clean, affordable and safe energy in the form of electricity, cooking fuel such as LPG, etc. automatically leads to improvement in the aspect of education, health and overall well-being of a citizen. And that is why the Sustainable Development Goal 7 calls upon countries to provide for affordable, sustainable and reliable energy for all its citizens. So based on this understanding, this article suggests that even though India accounts for 18% of the world's population, still it uses only 6% of world's energy. And India's per capita energy consumption is 1/3 of global average. It further highlights that there is also a wide disparity between urban and rural areas in terms of access to energy. So, it says that apart from income poverty, India is also facing the aspect of energy poverty. However, various steps have been taken by the government in this regard regarding Ujjwala Yojana, as it provides free LPG connection, Pehel scheme, as it provides direct benefit transfer for LPG cylinders, Saubhagya scheme, it provides electricity connections to all unelectrified households, Kusum scheme, which provides for installation of solar pump sets, and energy efficiency measures such as National Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency, Ujala, standards and labeling, etc. has also been provided by the government. Now, despite these measures taken by the government of India, India still has to increase its per capita energy consumption by at least 4 times as per the suggestion of Economic Survey of 2018-19, as this will help to achieve higher levels of human development. Now, this can be done through increasing subsidy amount under Ujjwala scheme and also use behavioral economics to nudge people to regularly use LPG cylinders, address the issue of frequent power cuts under Saubhagya scheme by promoting electric induction cook stoves and improving the financial health of discoms. So definitely there is a positive correlation between access to energy and human development, and hence India's prosperity is dependent upon its ability to reduce energy poverty. So effectively this article suggests to reduce energy poverty in India, and these are some of the steps which has been provided under the Economic Survey 2018-19, whereby India can increase its per capita energy consumption by at least 4 times. Thus, this article becomes important both from a prelims and mains perspective. From the prelims perspective, please remember SDG 7 goals, which call upon all countries to provide for affordable, reliable and sustainable energy for all. And in the mains examination, this aspect of energy poverty gets covered under GS paper 3 with respect to Indian economy, especially with respect to infrastructure and energy. Now, the next news to be taken up appears as an article on page number 7. It says a reductionist approach. Population level interventions are missing in India's approach towards tackling non-communicable diseases. Now, non-communicable diseases are such diseases which cannot be transferred from one person to another. Now, the author in this article suggests that while determining policy for non-communicable diseases, the government must consider social determinants of health. Now, these social determinants of health are such conditions in which we are born, we grow and age, and in which we live and work. So, this can include childhood experiences, the kind of housing which has been provided to us while we are growing up, our education system. Now, there is a section of the population to whom very good education is provided, but on the contrary, the vulnerable sections are not provided such qualitative education, social support, family income. Now, this may again vary, and based on this, the social determinants may change for a particular person, employment aspects, communities and access to health services. So the author suggests that while determining policies for non-communicable diseases, social determinants of health must be taken into account while formulating health policies. And these social determinants of health are the non-medical factors that influence health outcomes, as we have just seen. As these non-medical factors are the wider set of forces and systems which shapes the conditions of daily life of a person, including where they are born, where they grow, where they work, where they live, how they age, etc. And these forces and systems include economic policies and systems, developmental agendas, social norms, social policies, and political systems. So, the author says that in the present circumstances, policies which are made, especially with respect to non-communicable diseases, are either individualistic, reductionist, or skewed. Now, regarding individualistic policy, it's a set of policy measures in the form of enhanced non-communicable disease screening and management infrastructure, wellness and lifestyle interventions, patient referral mechanisms, and so on. However, the aspect of social determinants of health are not taken into account. Now, in the reductionist approach, it provides for a short-lived and inefficient technocratic solutions, focusing excessively on personalized preventive medical care. And this personalized preventive medical care is backed by health insurance policy and dominated by healthcare professionals. And then the skewed policy, where the policy interventions are ignoring the fact not only about individual health, but also about the public health. So, the author says that public health is also very and equally important as compared to an individual health. And hence, the health outcomes of a population should be dependent on social, economic, and ethical factors. So, the author has clearly suggested that social determinants of health must be followed. So these are the list which provide examples of the social determinants of health which can influence health equity in positive and negative ways, which includes income and social protection, education, unemployment and job insecurity, working life conditions, food insecurity, housing, basic amenities and environment, early childhood development, social inclusion and non-discrimination, structural conflict, and access to affordable health services of decent quality. And these social determinants of a person may vary based on different surroundings and different families in which they are born. So it says that research shows that social determinants can be more important than healthcare or lifestyle choices in influencing the health of a person. So addressing these social determinants of health appropriately is fundamental to improve health and also reduce long-standing inequities in health, which requires action by all sectors and civil society. So basically, the author suggests that there is also a need to reduce inequity with respect to provision of healthcare services, and this can only be done while taking into account the social determinants of health of various sections of the population. Now, from your prelims perspective and with respect to social determinant of health, you must remember the SDG goal 3, which provides for good health and well-being. Whereas in the previous article, we discussed about SDG goal 7, which provides for affordable and clean energy. So please remember these important SDG goals from your prelims perspective. Thus, this article becomes important both from our prelims and mains perspective, especially under the aspect of health under GS paper 2. With this, let's take up the question for the day. Now, based on our discussion, this becomes your practice question for the day. It says, consider the following pairs. First, zero hunger, SDG 1. Second, clean water and sanitation, SDG 2. Third, good health and well-being, SDG 3. And fourth, affordable and clean energy, SDG 7. So the question is, which of the above given pairs are correctly matched? Options are A, 1 and 4 only, B, 1 and 3 only, C, 2 and 3 only, and D, 3 and 4 only. Now coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was, Nord Stream pipeline, sometimes seen in the news, passes through which of the following? Options were A, Black Sea, B, Caspian Sea, C, Baltic Sea, and D, Mediterranean Sea. And this, the correct answer was C, that is Baltic Sea. So with this, we come to an end to today's analysis. Thank you for watching DNS.